Hey guys! So for today's video, we are back into our little basket of goodies from the thrift store. If you guys remember, I scored this like really industrial looking grilling pan, and I have spray painted this black. I just use regular, I'll put it on my list in the comments below. And I wanted it to be matte, so I used a matte spray paint. But we're going to finish the rest of this using a board. And then we had some knobs that were left over in our thrift basket as well. But we're going to use these as bun feet for this project as well. Hi, my name is Royce Hunt Bell, owner and operator of Roycycled Treasures. Let's get started, you guys. Okay, you guys, so for this project, I've decided, I know, I'm a hot mess, but I want to use the Roycycled mesh stencil, and this one is like mechanical gears, and I've used this one several times already, but you can reuse these over and over again. As long as you're nice to them and you clean them up right away, you can reuse them. And I just got in, like yesterday, some paste from Posh Chalk, so I'm going to use the Posh Chalk metallic paste with my stencil over the piece of wood, but I'm going to use some Owl Glaze to stain my wood before I do the artwork with the stencil. That's the plan, and I just came up with it, really. So that's what we're going to do, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to let these match perfectly, so I'm probably going to stain this one and then go over this one with the same glaze so that they look more cohesive. And you guys, you can stain your wood using just a water-based glaze. Did you know that? Wise Owl's glaze has so much pigment in it that it works as a really good stain. And the benefits of using this as a stain versus like an oil-based stain is that I can do this right here in my workshop because it doesn't stink. I don't have to go outside, and it's going to dry in like 10 minutes as opposed to the oil-based stains, which generally take about 72 hours to fully dry before you can seal them or do anything else. And so I'm going to give this just a quick sand because I see some marks on here. I really want to use a lower grit sanding pad, but I'm not seeing one. So I'll use this side of my 220 grit. And I'm really just cleaning it up because there's some black marks on here. And so I'm just going to sand those off really quickly. I have just a little bit of sand, a little bit of dust. So I'm just wipe that away. And I'm going to mist my wood. I don't want to wet it. So whenever I'm staining with glaze, I like to mist my wood first because it just makes the wood grain open up a little bit so that that pigment can really deposit into the wood. But I don't want to wet it because if I have water sitting on the surface, it'll dilute my glaze, and I don't want to do that either. So I'm just going to mist the surface of my wood a little bit, and I'm going to let that rest for a few minutes while the grain starts to really open up so that I can really get a lot of pigment deposited into there. And for my mixture of glaze, you guys, I like to use Wise Owl's glaze, and I use a mixture of Java and black walnut. The Java is a really rich brown. I love it. It's a beautiful color, but it doesn't stain really dark. And so the black walnut gives me the depth and the depth of color that I want, and the Java gives me the richness that I want. So together they work perfectly. So I'm going to take my glaze and just put a little bit here on my plate. And let's see, I have a small brush here. Look at my brushes are abused so bad. I want to say this is an F40, so this is a flat 40 brush from Klingon. So I'm going to take this and just apply it right over the surface of my wood. And I'm putting my glaze on here, but I don't want it to dry. So I'm going to wipe it back before it starts to dry on my wood. Just hitting my edges so that it's consistent all the way around. And I'm moving kind of fast because I really don't want it to dry on there. And I'm going to use a paper towel for this. I need to get some shop towels. So I'm just going to wipe that back. And see how beautifully that stains my wood without my having to wait 72 hours for it to dry, or without having to deal with any kind of serious fumes here in my shop. I want it a little bit darker, so I'm going to go back in. So I'm going to set that aside and let it dry some, and then we are going to work on these feet. So I'm going to sand these a little bit because there's a finish on here. So if I go right over the top of this with glaze, it's not going to do anything. So I'm just going to sand these just a little bit. I'm not going to sand all of the finish off. I probably could, but I don't want to. That's too much work, you guys. I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to sand it just to knock the finish off of it. And honestly, a piece of sandpaper would probably work better for this, but I don't have any here. I am like crafting on the fly right now, you guys. I am completely off script. I had a completely different plan for this project, but this is what it looks like inside my brain, you guys. So welcome in. Is it scary? So I'm going to sand these, and when I come back, we'll glaze them together, and then we'll assemble our tray. So now that I've sanded off the majority of the finish, meaning all of the shiny bits that were on here, I sanded that off. Now I have raw wood. So this color to me is more pleasing. It looks more modern. These are like super warm, and I want to tone them back just a little bit. So I'm going to take my glaze and go over these. And because I took off the majority of the finish, it'll absorb the glaze, and that'll help knock back some of that warmth that I see on these. And I actually think that I'm going to almost paint these using this glaze. I'm going to have a relatively dry brush, you guys. And I'm going to paint this glaze on, and then I'll go over it and seal it so that they aren't as warm as they are right now. And so we're just going to knock back that red orange tone and just modernize that a little bit for my industrial tray. And I'm just going through right now and just making sure I don't have any brush strokes, you guys, because that's not what I want on these. This may make it onto my island and not to the shop. And I'm going to do one more coat over the base of my tray. I want it to be a little darker than that. So I am just going to do another coat of glaze. Now that the tray is dried some, so that we're actually putting a second layer on here. We're going to let this dry, you guys, and when we come back, we're going to have fun with the Posh Chalk and the Roycycled stencil. So now we're ready to put our artwork on here. You guys, I did, while I was drying it, I took my brush and I dabbed on some extra glaze around the edges because I thought it made it look really cool and gave it some more depth. You guys know I love a good halo, right? And so my next product I'm going to use is chalk, is Posh Chalk. It's a metallic paste, and this is charcoal. And I'm going to use my spatula from Iron Orchid Design to put my chalk paste through my stencil. And then this is my Roycycled stencils. And it's going to be more, it's going to be less like, I really created this to be more like a texture. So we're going to be adding like an industrial texture to this piece. Hopefully it'll be really organic in how it's applied. So like I said, I've used this stencil before. I want to say this is about the, let's see, I see white, I see black. So this is at least the third time I've used this stencil. Generally, you can get up to like 6 uses out of each of the stencils. If you treat them the way I do, if you take extra care, you can get even more uses out of them. But it's going to be a little tacky when I put this on here. And these stencils are 11 by 14, so they're a lot larger than some of the other mesh stencils that you see on the market. But I am going to put this down. It's not wide enough to go over the entire piece, so I'm going to be really mindful about not having it end with any sharp edges. So I'm going to put this on this side, and then I'll probably go in and add some more on the other side. Now I'm wondering if I should use white or if I should use black. You guys, you have no idea what it's like inside of this brain of mine. I'll go ahead and use the black since the tray is dark. But I'm kind of tempted to do white on this and then put another layer of glaze over that white. That would look really cool. I think I'm going to go with white. I am going to go with white. I'm going to use white paint, you guys. I'm going to use regular chalk paint with this stencil. So if I'm using regular chalk paint, you guys, I'm going to have to make sure that I wash this right away. Because the chalk synthesis paint or any chalk style paint can get into your screens and clog them up. And then you won't, not that you won't be able to use them, but it'll clog the screen. So the next time you use it, the paint won't be able to get through there. So I think we're going to use this. And I am like seriously winging it here, guys. So I'm just going to put a little bit of paint on here, a little bit of paint. When I put it on my screen, I'm not going to put it right over any of the design. I'm actually going to put it over a blank portion of the screen and then pull it into the design. And just like when you're stenciling, you want to use a little bit of paint because you don't want it to go underneath your piece. And so I'm just using a little paint. You guys can see what I have here on my spatula. And I'm laying my paint down in areas where there is no design. And then I'm pulling it into or onto my screen or onto my design. And this is going to have a really cool texture on my tray. This is definitely making it to my island. I'm just saying. Now I need to pick up some more paint because I don't have any more. So I'm just picking up a little bit, not a ton of paint. And I'm going to find somewhere on my stencil where there's no design. And I'm going to pull the paint into the design. I'm being really careful right here because this gear goes to the edge of the design and I don't want to pick up that sharp edge. So I am going to be super careful right there. And you guys see how I was able to use this tacky screen print stencil right away using the glaze? If I had used a stain, an oil-based stain, I would have had to wait at least 72 hours. And so I'm going to pick this up. Oh, that is so freaking perfect. And I could have used more paint. I'm going to use more paint right here. I can see. I hope I don't double this design by doing this. We'll see what happens. I'm going to push a little bit more paint through this one than is there. I suppose if it doubles, it won't look horrible because of this design. And it doesn't look like I washed mine really well the last time because that one didn't come through really well. But you see how it's just a texture. I just think that's absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to add some more on this side over here. I just have to figure out what's going to make sense aesthetically. And I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other side. I'm always unloading away from the actual design. Sorry, I laid that down. That's too much paint. And then I'm going to drag that paint into the designs that I'm wanting to pick up. This one's gonna cross a little bit, but I think that's gonna be cool because there's just a number right there. Yeah. So now I have this really cool texture more than anything. It doesn't really look like a stencil. I'll be honest, I didn't clean my stencil really well the last time. So this design, the screen was clogged. And so that's why you're not seeing a lot of the design come through. But I think this pattern is going to be perfect. I'm going to hit this with some heat really quick to dry it, and then I'm going to do a really light coat of glaze over this, and then we'll be ready to assemble our tray. So now that my stencil is dry, you guys, I can seal. I'm such a dork. I'm looking for the lid. I can seal my piece, and again, I'm using the rock hard top coat because this is going to be a tray, right? So I want to make sure that it's going to endure like any kind of moisture, anything that may find its way onto my tray. And so just a real quick coat. I'll probably do 2 coats of this over this piece of wood just to make sure that it's protected. But I want to let each layer dry before I put on the next. I'm going to dry this, and then we come back. We'll put our feet on our tray. Although now I'm looking at my feet. I don't know. I think they need something. Don't you guys think they need something? I'm thinking black. I'm thinking black paint is going to... I don't want to paint them all the way black. I think I'm going to dry brush them black. And I believe that will work. So I'm going to go ahead and just dry brush this, you guys. Because these are still just a little too rich. So I'm just going to dry brush them just a little bit. But I still want some of that wood to come through. So I'm not going to paint them fully. I vote yes, that's better. So we're going to dry this. I'm going to seal these. And then we come back. We'll assemble our tray. Okay, you guys. So by the time I get to the end, I'm going to have to redo all the supplies we used for today's craft. But we have our insert. It's dry. It's ready to go. I love the distressed gears on here. I think it's fabulous. I have my feet. I did dry brush them, and I just sealed them so they would be protected. And so we have our tray here. And you guys remember this was just a grill tray, right? And we're going to drop our insert in here. And I'm going to glue the feet onto the bottom really quickly though. So let me turn my glue gun on. So what I'll be doing is I'll be using my glue gun to tack my feet on immediately. And then I'll be using my E6000 to make sure that they stay tacked on like forever. So I did go over, you guys, and just dry brush this with a little bit of glaze. It was just looking a little bit too stark for me, the white. And so I just picked up like very, very little glaze on my brush and just really dry brushed it over the top of my stencil because I don't want it to push it back too far, but I don't want it to look as stark as it looked on there. So that just makes it look more cohesive. And so that is done. I promise I'm done now. I have decided placement for my feet. I actually cheated and I used the holes that are already on here to decide where I'm going to glue my pieces. I'm using my Ryobi cordless glue gun with Gorilla Glue Sticks in here. And then I also have my E6000 glue. And so I'll be gluing my knobs on. I have them placed based on the holes that I have here. I figured out where I wanted to put them. And so I'm going to go ahead and get these glued on, and then I'm going to glue my tray in. Now, if I was going to be using this like on my patio or something like that outside, I would probably screw these on, but they're going to be decorative and it's going on my island, so it'll be fine. So I'm going to put a couple of dots of E6000 glue here. And then I'm going to put a couple of dots of hot glue. And what the hot glue does is just really tack it down right away and keeps it adhered really well. until the E6000 can set. I'm gonna let these sit for a few minutes before I flip my tray over because I don't want them to shift or move. And let me close this right away. I feel like my E6000 is like my toothpaste. I have to remind myself to push it from the bottom so I don't end up wasting any of my glue. Okay, so those are pretty set. And now we can work on this side. And so there are places on my tray where there aren't any holes, and so that's where I'm going to put my glue. So I'm going to put a lot of glue here in the middle, and then there's places along the edges where I have opportunities to put glue as well. So I'm going to put the E6000 down first, because this is really what's going to be what holds my tray in place. And so now I'm going to go in with my hot glue and just put enough on there so that it doesn't move until that E6000 sets up. Although these Gorilla Glue sticks are pretty good, you guys. Okay, I think I put enough glue. maybe enough glue. I really don't want this to come off. So I'm gonna drop this in there. And we're done, you guys. This tray is so cute. This is gonna go on my kitchen island. I'm gonna find something heavy to sit on top of this until this cures, just to make sure that it adheres really well. Especially make sure I smush that hot glue down. That's it. What do you guys think? So super cute industrial tray, made from a grilling, I don't know, what do you call these? A grill tray? And some bun feet that I found at the thrift store. And I think this is the kind of thing, that's how I got paint on my elbow. I think this is the kind of thing that you would create around the holidays, right? Because you can customize this to fit somebody's personality or their style or their aesthetic absolutely perfectly. But thank you guys so much for joining me today. I know this is a bit of a hot mess, but this is what it looks like inside my mind, what I am creating here in my space alone. But you guys can find all the supplies we use here today at Roycycled.com. I'll make sure and leave the links below. And let me just recap what we actually used, just to clarify any confusion. We spray painted the tray using some flat black spray paint. We used Owl Glaze to stain our the piece of wood for the inside, and that's like a 1/4 inch piece of plywood that we use for our insert. We ended up using Wise Owl's Antique Via to use the stencil over the glaze, and for our bun feet we did use some glaze to kind of knock back some of the richness, and I dry brushed it with some black paint as well. And so this tray is done, just a few craft supplies, and I think it's absolutely fabulous. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Remember, like, you guys see how much of a hot mess I am? You guys can do this, and you guys can do it today. Make sure and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Have a good day.